Now returning to the King of Spain's visit to the UK, King Felipe told MPs and peers today he hopes they can work together to resolve the issue of Gibraltar's future as a British overseas territory. I'm joined now from Madrid by Alana Moceri, an international relations analyst and professor at the University of Europe of Madrid. And very good to talk to you, Professor Moceri. Your view on the thorny issue of Gibraltar and King Felipe's view that it can be sorted out.
Well, that's what we hope. I mean, certainly what we've seen is a lot of rhetoric from both sides. But you know, certainly what the king was saying, and I think we could, even if we didn't know what he was going to say, there was a lot of sources saying that he'd be talking about it today, and indeed he did, but in a very diplomatic way, because that's really his role. He was over there in terms of building goodwill and building a stronger relationship between the people of Spain and the people of the UK. But this issue has become difficult, particularly in the last 6 months. And there's been a lot of rhetoric. There's been a lot of sort of hysterical rhetoric on one side and warmongering out of a few voices from the UK. And then, you know, on the Spanish side, there's been some rhetoric about, well, you know, some moral relativity in terms of saying perhaps we should allow Scotland to join the EU if they secede. So that doesn't help the discussion, because what's really at issue is what happens with the border of Gibraltar with the Brexit deal and how that will be handled.
Well, let's edge towards a potential solution. I mean, as you mentioned there, within Brexit, Gibraltar clearly voted to remain, but also wants to remain part of the UK. Can that circle be squared?
Well, I think absolutely, because certainly in Spain there is a cultural component here, but I think we see that the right-wing government, President Rajoy, that their party has sometimes used this to ratchet up some nationalism every so often. But really, I think if you poll most people in Spain, it would be really interesting to see those numbers. You find that people really aren't so nationally attached to having Gibraltar be part of Spain. What's more at issue from the Spanish side are economic considerations, such as Gibraltar being a tax haven, the problem with smuggling. Those are issues that are affecting Spain and actually the UK economically. And those are issues that do need to be discussed. And that's why, you know, this so-called clause in the Brexit deal, you know, there's been a lot of rhetoric calling it a Spanish veto. But the clause only deals with once the UK has exited the European Union, and any types of agreements that would affect Gibraltar. So, of course, Spain is the only country that borders Gibraltar, needs to be in on any sort of negotiations of that sort. But certainly it's an issue that is going to need to be treated carefully, because we're talking about changing a border that's been an open border to a hard border. And that's a big change, and it's going to have a real effect on the people of Gibraltar, which I'm afraid that we tend to lose what's in their best interest when we get into these debates.
And just very briefly, I mean, you touched on it earlier. How are comments like the former leader of the Conservative Party made, Lord Howard, about sending in warships if it all goes wrong and things like that? How do they go down in Spain?
Not very well, frankly. I mean, everything, plenty of Spaniards understand English, and if they don't, it's being translated and it's getting repeated in the social media and in the newspapers, and that doesn't help. It also doesn't help, you know, that, you know, you've got Spaniards who are feeling like people from the UK are looking down their noses at them. When we look at all of the people from the UK who are living in Spain, they're mostly in the south of Spain, and it's an older population that's not quite as interested in learning Spanish and becoming part of Spanish culture, whereas Spain's sending the UK a lot of their best and brightest. A lot of my former students are in London right now. And they're working and they're earning money and they're speaking in English and they're being part of society and contributing to it. And so there is an uneven relationship in that sense. And I think that also, that plus the rhetoric really makes it more difficult when on a basic level. I mean, Spain loves the UK and Spanish people love to travel there and all of that. So there really shouldn't be this tension there.
OK, great talking to you, Professor Moceri. Thank you very much indeed. Alana Moceri there from the University of Europe in Madrid. And this is Sky News Tonight coming up. Coca-Cola gives into